Good morning, everyone. This is Michele Hughes from Ageless and Timeless. I'm here today with someone who's a very special friend of mine and someone I met through the former founder of the DNA company in Toronto. And I think you might remember he's been on my podcast. His name is Kashif Khan. And Tracy Wood is the new CEO of the company. And Kashif has kind of stepped over to being more of the brand marketing, waving the flag and doing a lot of business development. So I think it's a perfect segue because Tracy's an operational executive and Kashif was really, as often happens in these startups, he was the idea man, and as the company starts to grow, they need somebody with more operating skills like Tracy. So welcome to Ageless and Timeless, Tracy.
Thank you. It's great to be here, and thanks for asking me.
And also, Tracy was the subject of our Top Doctor magazine article that we did about, I think, two or 3 months ago, and it was a fabulous article. We got some great feedback, and I've seen Kashif has been on Instagram quite a bit, at least that's where I see him, talking about a lot of the developments that are happening. So I'd like today, Tracy, if you'll kind of step in and give us some updates. So when I did the test, which was, I think, 2.5 years ago, there was no breast testing. And, that was something you've added, so we'll talk about that. And however, I will say that my test was 60 pages long, and it's really quite something to navigate because, once you do that test, the genetics profile, you don't need to ever do it again because you are, your genes are your genes. Although the one thing that Tracy couldn't talk about today is there's more and more epigenetics that happen with respect to gene interpretation. And over the 2.5 years, so much has happened. I mean, peptides and more DNA issues on just the methylation and how we can use our genes to help us to better methylate and have longer telomeres and so forth. So Tracy, I'm going to turn it over to you. Why don't you tell us from 2.5 years ago, what has happened at the DNA company and what things will be exciting for our viewers?
Sure. So I want to start with, yes, Kashif still speaks about the brand, but Kashif has his own business. He's an influencer and he does a lot of different biohacking things, some things with water and things like that.
I've seen that, yeah.
Right. We do 100% of his testing because we still are the leading authority in functional genomics and the interpretation of functional genomics globally. Right. We actually expanded. You just said your genes are your genes and you only have to test once. That's not entirely true. So
cool.
As functional genetics and genomics has evolved in the last 3 years, we've spent time with some of the scientists that originally created the idea of the DNA company that Kashif then became the brand spokesperson for. But we've added 91 genes and insights and explanations to those insights to further delve into different parts of our own bodies.
Right.
We have a greater understanding in mood and behavior than we ever did. We've done a ton of work and research on longevity. And now we can give you a better picture of your longevity, your indicators for dementia or Alzheimer's. I mean, there's so many new pieces
Right.
to what we do. So one of the things that was important to me when Kashif asked me to take over as the CEO, it was important to me to keep us affordable and accessible. And you mentioned the 60-page report. That was the first thing I went after. And I said, we can't have reports that look like this. People are not going to download 60 pages. They're not going to sit and look. Some of them were 100 pages. So I started the development of the app. The app now can take you through your genes very quickly, easily searchable, and it breaks it down into the different systems in the body. So if your big, concern is inflammation and methylation, you can go straight to those sections. You can see what your gene expression is, and you can see what suggestions and recommendations we have for you. We're still not the pill for every ill people, right? That's not who we want to be. So it was very important over this last 18 months when my chief science officer did all of this research with the clinical team and really delved in to areas that all of our community have asked for. And so that's what the new report does now. Now, separate to that, to avoid the 60 pages, the app had to upgrade to the tech stack. And our tech stack, what Kashif and the team before had, it was 10-year-old technology. So we did a multi-million-dollar lift and rebuilt that tech stack. And during that process, we were able to go to people and say, listen, we want to be able to give you all of your genes in perpetuity at no extra cost, but we need everybody on the new technology. So we're going to give all of you the test at cost so that we can get you into the new tech stack. And then every time we go and add 10 genes or 20 genes or additional insights that are really pivotal and important, you get them for free in perpetuity. And that's what we did.
That is amazing, Tracy. I had no idea. So I'm really behind the times, and that's good that I know this now because I want to do my own personal updates, but also I recommended you to so many people back then that I know took me up on my suggestions. So a lot of those people, hopefully they're either listening today, or I will put this in the show notes for others to be aware of, that they have an opportunity to update. So how many total genes are being tested today in your
I think we're at 198, 199. Now, it's important to know we're pulling your entire profile. But the insights and the SNPs and the CNVs that we're reporting on that really hone in to specific parts of your function, we're at, like, I think it's 198 or 199. Now we're doing research for the next group. So in the next 12 months, we may throw another 40, 50 different indicators that we think maybe emphasize things like APOE or 5-HTTP or any of those that really drive a lot of other parts and pieces, right? So it's really important that if anyone, and in fact, we're only letting people get it at cost through the end of this weekend. We've been doing this since December 15th. So we gave everybody in the ecosystem 60 days. And it's only $199. But in that $199, you're getting twice as much information and really drilling down into more pivotal parts of the human body, your bio-individual human body, right? Which is really important. So as it grows, people will be able to just go into the app at any given time, see the update, and get any of the new insights, and they get them all for free after this upgrade. So
what's your long-term goal in terms of numerics about how many genes and how often will be the updates and so forth? What is your vision?
So here's the thing. I could give you hundreds of thousands of pieces of data that mean absolutely nothing to you. I wouldn't do that. What matters is what's going on with our community. What matters is what's going on. I mean, you look at women's health, right? Now we've been told the black box warning has been removed from BHRT. Well, as women, I know, we knew this 20 years ago. I've been on BHRT for 20 years.
So have I.
Right. So we want to make sure that if there's more insights for hormones, if there's more insights for thyroid, if there's more insights into cardiovascular, the ones that make a difference, the ones that we can action, right? We always say that your DNA essentially loads the gun, right? Your genes load the gun, but the environment and your lifestyle pull the trigger, right? And with that, if you've got a lifestyle that's consistent with how you're built, if you're one of those people that's really built to be a vegan, we can tell you that. If you're somebody that's really built to never have dairy, we can tell you that. Why does that matter? Because when you put oil into the fuel tank of your car, you're going to essentially break the engine. You're going to essentially damage the vehicle.
Healthy circulation is foundational to overall wellness, and nitric oxide plays a critical role in how the body delivers oxygen and nutrients where they're needed most. N101 focuses on supporting nitric oxide production as a pathway to better cardiovascular health, energy, and performance. This is an area of health that often gets overlooked, yet it impacts everything from brain function to endurance and recovery. N101's work brings important attention to a system that truly affects whole body vitality. You can learn more about N101 and Dr. Nathan Bryan and their approach by visiting the link in the show notes or by using the code AGELESS10 for 10% off of all their products.
It's the same thing if you're putting food or you're putting medicine or you're putting environmental stimulus into a body that can't process it. So my big focus is not how many genes we're going to add, because I could just add a bunch of crap and it would mean nothing to anybody, right? My focus is what can we tackle that we can change to help with longevity? How can we help people age better? How can we help people age stronger? How do we get, the leading cause of death for anyone over the age of 55, third leading cause is frailty. Well, what does that mean? That means you fall, you break something, you hit your head. If you're frail over 55, that's a scary thing.
So is there a gene that tells you about sarcopenia and your muscle mass? Is there?
Absolutely. All of that's in the cardiovascular program. All of that is in the inflammation part of the report, the detox part of the report. So there's so much more that we can tell you than we've ever been able to tell you, right? And now we've got people in other countries, very far from here, coming to us saying, listen, we want to bring your testing, your lab, your report into our country. Yeah, we have a bunch of regulations here, but we still think you are the leading authority. And we're talking 10 million in the first population. So whatever we're doing wrong, we're doing right, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Dr. Mansour, who really was the brains behind what became the DNA company, Dr. Mansour Muhammad, I always call him by his first name. Dr. Muhammad was way ahead of his time, still is. And so when we took his foundational testing and then added these additional insights, I think that my chief science officer, Dr. Kosterman, has done a stellar job. We've gotten great feedback. We've actually been doing more webinars to teach our community, hey, here's what your new genes are, and we're chunking it down really small so that people can ask questions in real time. Not everybody can afford a concierge doctor, right? Not everybody can afford to, go into different programs. And, there's a lot of these people that are popping up that are, health and wellness coaching and whatnot. But there's not a lot of clinical validation behind it. And that was the big piece that Kashif wanted me to bring, which was that clinical validation. So we've got, thousands of providers all over the world. We developed the DNA University, which is now the education system that's internationally accredited, as well as accredited here in the United States, that validates the education, it validates what we're teaching, and it helps give these people that want to learn foundational genetics and genomics, it gives them a starting point with a lot of great information. And that's also a lifetime access thing. That was important to me and Michele. You and I, we deal with a lot of people in the same circles, right? And every 4 or 5 years, they have to do a continuing ed, and they're spending good money after bad for the same schools. And it's absurd to me. I'm giving them a lifetime of tuition that they get it one time, and we continue to update the information. So every 4 years, we also are once again another 16 credits that they can use. Even though they've already gone through the course, it's just more information, with more science, more vetted research. So it's important.
That's very impressive. So, what are some of the revelations that you've had through all these innovations in the expansion of the genetic profile?
I think the most important thing that I see is efficacy. So we have people that come to us that are sometimes at the end of their rope. They've tried everything. In fact, I had a patient reach out to me from the UK, and she sent me a message, and it said, and it was on Instagram. She sent me a message and it said, I've been diagnosed with breast cancer and they want to perform a double mastectomy. And I go in 2 weeks and I'm terrified and I don't know what to do. And I wrote back to her and I said, I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on television. I said, but I can put you in a room and I will do this pro bono, so free. I'll put you in a room with a bunch of my doctors, a virtual room, and let us ask some questions to maybe arm you with when you go in to see this allopathic person that you're going to go see. So the meeting was literally, we got everybody assembled within 24 hours because this woman didn't have a lot of time.
Wow.
So I got all of the right people in the room, which was very important to me. And there she is, and her husband is sitting in the background, and he's a typical English man. He's very quiet. He's very reserved. He's just watching. And my father was an Englishman, so I was acutely aware of who this guy was sitting in the corner, right? And so she starts telling us what is happening to her, and she's very upset. And I said, we're going to have a bunch of people asking questions here. Is that okay? And she said, sure. And I said, is that okay for you, to him? And he just cried. And I said, I don't know if we can do anything to help your wife, but here's what I will tell you. If there's one thing we can pull out of this that you guys can use to arm her and to help her, that's all I care about. So long and short of it, we go through the whole thing. 2 weeks later, I get another message. She said, I didn't do the double mastectomy. And we had found her a functional practitioner close to where she lived in England. And she went to this practitioner and took her gene report. And our doctors agreed to talk to them, again, at no charge, to try to just help to move the needle. And I talked to her at New Year. And the cancer has not progressed. She changed a bunch of things based on the insights from the genetic report. She did the tear protein test. We were able to help them figure out different things that they didn't have over there. And the long and the short of it is this woman has not been surgically altered. She feels better than she's ever felt. Her husband has hope and is excited about their retirement. And that's the part that's so important to me. Every patient is different, Michele, so we meet them where they are. And there's a lot of times that people can't afford to work with us. I built an installment plan program that's no interest just so we could continue to try to help these people that can't afford to do it all at once. So to me, you know how I got here. I mean, my sister died. It was a year ago 19 years ago last week. And that's what got me into this. That's why Kashif and I came together, because one more life is the focus for us. And that means it could be one more life impacted, one more life saved. We deal with a lot of addiction and recovery now because our mood and behavior profile really delves into that. And we're able to help people that have been, I had one patient who had been to Betty Ford 4 times and they got nowhere. I had another one that went to Cliffside, Malibu, $50,000 a throw. Nowhere.
These were all for addiction?
These were all for addiction. And we got them to understand how they were built foundationally. And using our insights, what they could do to make changes for those physiological needs that were not being met. But they didn't even know they had them. So, the DNA company, when I got here, had a great report. We were definitely bleeding edge. The DNA company now, in my opinion, is the absolute global authority in functional genomics and functional genetics. And I think that as we continue to do our research, our goal is that one more life. Our goal is efficacy. How can we help? How can we support? How can we help you move whatever needle it is you need to move?
So I just want to clarify. Did you say that she did not do the double? She decided not to do it. Okay, so she chose to go your route of being with a functional medicine and looking at her lifestyle and epigenetic approach.
Right.
And so,
we educated that functional doctor across the pond. We educated them in functional genomics so they could use that report and weaponize that report.
Right. That's an amazing story. I mean, and that's just one of, I'm sure.
One of thousands, Michele.
Thousands, exactly.
Yeah.
So what would you conclude if you're going to if you were writing a report, a white paper on that particular case? What would you conclude in that paper?
I would definitely encourage people to question everything when it comes to seeing a practitioner, any practitioner, including mine. We call it practicing medicine for a reason, right? Nobody's gotten it down right. You know what I mean?
Right.
When you go see a doctor, so many of us, we walk in, this is the doctor we got from insurance or we got from National Health, and we walk in and whatever they say, that's gold. That's it. And I would encourage people to question. And doctors will get exacerbated. They will get frustrated with you in some cases. I understand that. And I know they've got 7 minutes. That's all they have with you in each room. But if somebody's telling you they have to surgically alter you because there's a cancer in your body, and if they don't, you've got 6 months to live, you had damn well better question.
Yeah.
You had damn well better double check them. We don't know what we don't know if we're not in healthcare, right? So I think that if I was to write a paper on her particular case, my entire focus would be question everything. And so, she was in a community where she didn't think she could do that.
Right. And she probably had an allopathic surgeon that was, more interested in cut, because that's where they make their money. I mean, let's face it, follow the money is definitely still, a goal for a lot of these, because otherwise they don't have a practice. So that's their business.
Yeah.
So in that recommendations for her change in her lifestyle, what were some of the things? I'm just using her because this is such a great example of how lifestyle and choices can make a difference. So what were some of the recommendations that your team and her functional medicine, like doctor who you recommended, were giving her to basically help her not to do the mastectomy and to be able to basically not, just stop the cancer from growth?
Sure. So inflammation was key, right? She also needed methylation supplement, right?
Okay.
So we were able to send her we have a custom formula, and we actually made a formula for her based on her genetics. So we can do that.
Yes.
And so we made that, and we had those sent across. But one of the biggest things was she needed more quiet time. She needed less stress, right? Stress exacerbates cancer. So we had one practitioner that all she did was teach her how to meditate. This woman she probably had 7-8 years on me, so late 60s, early 70s. And she'd never meditated. She was an English woman, right? That's not big over there.
That's not what they do
in our generation. So that was one of the things. The other thing was the food, right? Everything is brown, and there's gravy, and there's flour, and there's wheat. And we said, listen, your HLA is genetically predisposed towards gluten sensitivity. That doesn't mean you're celiac. That means your body doesn't like gluten, right? So we went through all of that with her, and we changed everything she put into her body. Another one was cow's dairy. Now she can still have goat, she can still have sheep if she wants dairy, but the cow's dairy she couldn't have because of the protein that it has specifically that's different. Mm-hmm. So we went through all of that with her, and mm-hmm. we incorporated some additional weight training, right? Just resistance bands, picking up jugs of milk, right? Those were things that we did, and she turned all of it around. She really did.
For one thing, you had a very compliant patient.
Yes.
Obviously highly motivated, and so she followed your instructions. Did she take up any other exercise besides the resistance that she maybe gets in England? They don't seem to be as avid about physical fitness as we are. So yes. Was that something that she was able to accomplish?
Yes. So her and her husband started walking more vigorously because they were retired, which was very helpful. But her weightlifting, and there's so much research right now on women, especially peri and menopausal women, right. With us in weight training, there's so much science on that right now. That was a big part of the focus. A big part right. of the focus was to get her picking up heavier but less right. reps, right? Doing more to really expand that muscle. And then we had to feed the muscle. We had to feed it the way she needed to be fed. And that was no gluten, no dairy, lots of genetically formulated supplements. Right. And, she's active. He's more active. We did work with him. And the two of them have a whole new view at life.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I bet the attitude part, the positive mental PMA, I'm sure, the fact that they had hope come into their lives rather than despair. Right. Is there a way to test that genetically, as whether you're being genetically compromised for me, I remember Cash telling me that he and I both have the same gene when it comes to dopamine, that we're entrepreneurs, we get a big hit, and then we say like a minute later, well, what's next? And so we don't really have a gene that helps us to feel good neurotransmitter wise, to feel good for a long period of time. We always need a new stimulus. So that's the one that I remember for me, but I try to work on that and make every effort and experience and outcome be cataclysmic enough to hold on and make it something of value and precious, and not just take it for granted. So was there something like that with her that you were able to work on?
Her mood and behavior profile gave us a lot of insight into was she going to take the recommendations, right? We can tell you if somebody's going to be open to new ideologies, because that is functionally genetic. We were able to tell how well she would follow, and with what type of mindset. Now, the new testing gives us even more information in that space. So I'll be interested to see what happens when we retest you.
I can't wait. This is so exciting. Well, so let's segue for a moment to the separate test that I did with you, the breast test, because I think a lot of women, don't understand what that test is going to tell them. So is that still in existence as a separate test?
Yeah, so we do the Breast 360, and it's a tear production test, and it tells us different inflammation markers and protein markers that could indicate that there's something that you need to test for. So why did we decide to do this? We decided to do this because more and more the rules are being changed over who gets screened and who doesn't. Not just in America, it's all over the world. And the American Medical Association, along with National Health and Canadian Health, they all started moving the needle. Instead of us being screened at 40, now it's 45. And now we've got younger women, many younger women, late 20s, early 30s, that are coming up positive for breast cancer. And it's taking months and months to get tested. And in some of those cases, these women have died.
Why did they change that level from 40 to 45? What happened?
Money.
Oh.
Money. It comes down to money. And so I got very frustrated with what I was seeing and what I was hearing. And I went to one of my practitioners and she said, hey, there's this revolutionary testing ideology. She goes, if we take that and we take their functional genomics, we can take those results and really knock out some movable action. And I said, I want to see it. So we did that. And in that, we have now tested thousands and thousands of women, and they're younger, but they're also in rural areas. They can't get to a mammogram, and they certainly can't get one approved. And the test is right around $300, so it's very affordable. But a positive result in that test can then get the allopathic medicine system to say, okay, now we have to test you because you have a lab slip here that says we've got a problem.
You have a diagnosis.
You don't have a diagnosis. You have an indicator of early detection. And that, in a lot of cases, is enough.
Okay. So what's happened since you've created that test? What kind of results have you seen, and what would you say have been the biggest accomplishments for having that test?
So the biggest accomplishment is awareness, right? Letting these people know there's something in here and you need to have it checked. Some of those that come back with a positive detection result doesn't mean that you have breast cancer, but it could mean that you've got so much inflammation in your body, you have to look at what that other inflammation is and where is it coming from. So when you've got both of those tests together, we can usually help isolate where this inflammation is coming from, and more importantly, what to do to combat it. What to do to help, again, move that needle back down to that healthy and more cellularly healthy range within the human body.
So I have a question. What if you have an ultrasound and you're completely negative, everything turns out fine, but yet you take your test and you have inflammation, but it looks like it's related to the breast because it's a breast exam, but yet you just had an ultrasound that showed a completely clean bill of health. So if you had something like that come to you or attention, what would you do?
Well, okay, again, I'm not a doctor. What I would do is I would have one of the practitioners that deal in women's health and specifically breast health. I would have them go through those results, but I also would ask for a full metabolic panel. I'd want to know what the blood also says. If you take all of these pieces and put them together, the jigsaw comes together. It becomes more clear. So I think that, we're big on test, don't guess, right? I would even go beyond that and say, I'm going to do a liquid biopsy, which is an FDA approved test. I'm going to do a liquid biopsy. And if there is a cancer cell in my body, in theory, I should be able to know where it is and in what system. And if that came back with a positive, we would tell that patient to go get a full body scan and to take all those results with them. We would send them to a tertiary center somewhere like USC, very progressive, bleeding edge, because it would be time for diagnostic tools.
So if you do an MRI and you had some, let's say, a cancer in the breast area, would that be revealed by the MRI if you're doing a full body?
If they did the T section,
full
absolutely.
body.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
you should be able to see any mass in that space, depending on how they approach it from the radiology perspective.
And then where does the Dutch test or those kinds of hormone tests fit into your protocol?
So a Dutch test is really great to help us figure out where a woman is in perimenopause, menopause, and where their hormones are. The more we've learned about hormone and hormone imbalance, the more we see that also is a indicator in insulin resistance. There's a lot of science behind blood glucose dysregulation comes with hormone dysregulation. Once you regulate the hormones, then you've got to go back and look at diet, food, and type 2 diabetes in a lot of women. So the Dutch test, that we do a Dutch test complete, and again, we take that with your DNA 360, we put it all together, and we grow your puzzle picture. And we're able to then look at those results and say, you know, maybe you are someone that needs a progesterone or an estrogen. And, you know, we're not a drug company. We're not selling anyone's specific formulas. But we're big in bioidentical biomimetics, so stuff that comes from food. I've been on the Wiley protocol for, 15 years.
What is that?
The Wiley protocol was developed by T.S. Wiley, and it is bioidentical biomimetic, which means it comes from food, and it's a transdermal cream. And I've been on that for 15 years. And for me, it has been exceedingly successful. I have a lot of my practitioners here that are on that. Some of them are on that, and they do oral progesterone. It just depends on what your body's looking for.
You know, I thought I was pretty knowledgeable about hormones. I have never heard of this Wiley protocol. So what's in it that makes the impact, the positive impact?
You're going to have to ask T.S. Wiley what's in it to make the impact. But what I will tell you is this. Do you remember that show? It was like, 30 years ago. Suzanne Summers went on Oprah and was shaking her little bag of hormones.
Yes.
It was those hormones. So Suzanne was on those from the very beginning with T.S. Wiley. There's a lot of celebrities that use the Wiley protocol, a lot. But it's very effective. It's non-invasive, and it's controlled rhythmically.
So it's transdermal cream that affects the level of your vital hormones, particularly your sex hormones, like
absolutely.
I can't believe I've never heard this.
You should. T.S. Wiley and I, we've been friends for a long time. You should definitely connect with her. Because
I think he should be on my show.
I think she absolutely should be on your show.
So it's a woman.
Yes,
it's a woman.
Yes,
she is. That's good.
And she wrote Sex, Lies, and Menopause, which was a great book.
Oh yeah.
And she wrote Lights Out.
Okay, will you digitally introduce us? So
yeah,
I would definitely want to hear more about this. But so does that mean that it affects the level of other hormones that you take? Like, for example, do you take estradiol or do you take testosterone? Or, you know, in other words, how does it influence what happens at the other end of the sequence of what your protocol looks like?
So these are T.S. Wiley questions. I can tell you what it looks like from testing, but I would encourage you to meet with her and have her on the show because she can tell you to the nth degree how each of these things come together, how it affects cortisol, how it affects your skin, your hair. I mean, it's just But you know,
I feel like wow, this is a big opportunity that you know, not only for me but for all my viewers.
Oh yeah, 1,000%.
And this is both men and women can benefit.
Absolutely, yes. There's a male protocol. A lot of our guys are on the male protocol.
Yeah, so there's a male and a female protocol.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. So when you said you work with the Dutch, does that mean you have one internally in the company that you have employed the Dutch technology, or does that mean you sub out the Dutch test to anybody that has a question?
So Dutch generally has to be ordered by a practitioner, so we have to place that order for a patient. So and it's the Dutch complete. It's not just the Dutch test. And we do use their technology. All of our people are certified by them that read the results and again take your DNA 360 and put the two together to make a more complete picture. And then it's a mandatory consultation so that you get all of the information from a practitioner that's licensed to have the conversation.
Okay, this is really exciting stuff. So what other new tests have you, I know you've added more tests, but what other new tests have you added that we should know about?
I think the biggest new test is the old test. The DNA
Okay.
360 now is a far more robust, a much bigger set of insights than it ever was. It's like the first test that Kashif did on steroids, right? And it provides so much action ability for the consumer that they can literally go into the app, which is very fast compared to the old PDF, right? You remember.
Right.
They can go into that at any given time and isolate down to one thing that they want to really understand, and they get a bunch of insights on that are digestible, that they can get it, right? I mean, a lot of the stuff that we had originally was so over people's heads. We realized that we had to meet these people where they were and bring it down to something that was very practical, very actionable, and very right now. Because people want to make change, they want to make change now. And that's what we did.
I mean, this is like when we talk about the new dimension of longevity that, it can actually doesn't have to be for the wealthy.
Right.
Because a lot of people are complaining, oh yeah, it's great to live forever, but you better be pretty rich, because to take all these, the plasmapheresis tests and the stem cells, and at 40,000 a pop, and all these things cost a lot of money, and so people who are hardworking middle class or lower middle class, they feel like they're being left out. But in your case, this is giving you an anchor into awareness that is not costly and yet can be the foundation for making very good choices. And so I'm just, blown away by what I'm hearing today. Well, the other thing is, I usually don't talk about the competitors, but I did meet Kim Ressler at SNP. So compare their testing and yours? Is it night and day, or are they similar?
It is night and day.
Okay, can you give us a comparison?
Kim is lovely, by the way. Absolutely lovely. Used our tests for years.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, she. So how would you differentiate between the two tests? Just so people who have looked at that test. And I know you don't want to talk down on it, but just so that people get an awareness of what they're going to get from one versus the other, and why they're different.
I think that when you go buy a car, you don't buy the car for the radio.
Yeah.
You might be into radios. You might get in the car and go, oh my gosh, this is the greatest radio of all time. I know everything there is to know about this radio, and this radio is going to do everything I want it to do. Well, what about the rest of the car?
Yeah.
If you don't know anything about the rest of the car, what about the tires? What about the engine? If you don't look at something in its totality, you cannot make lasting change.
Okay.
And there's the differences between us and pretty much all these other DNA tests. You've got to look at a person as a bio-individual and at a 360-degree view. And if you don't do that, you are not doing them a service. You can do a little service. You can help them with a little thing or one specific area of concern or maybe even a chronic condition. But what about what got them there? Where's the work on that root cause?
Yes.
Somebody comes to you and says, I have osteoporosis. Okay, we know that's inflammation in a lot of ways, right? We also know it's genetics. So how do we get to the root cause of that? We have to know all of the rest of their genetics. We have to know, how do they detox? How do they process things? We have to know so much more than just the patient has osteoporosis. Now, from that chronic condition, what else is wrong? Well, I'm tired. I've got fatigue. Okay. Are those two things linked? And I'm not going to know if I don't look at all of your stuff. And so I love what Kim is doing. I think that she does great work. But I think that there's more to you and more to me than just that longevity focus, right? I'll be
Okay.
60 years old this year.
Oh, good
I
for you.
lift, thank you. I lift about 250,000 pounds a month in weight.
Wow. Wow.
Couldn't do that in my 30s.
Right.
But knowing what I know now, based on everything about me, I lift 250,000 pounds a month.
So what did you do to create that change and that success?
You know, the first thing I did was I stopped running on a treadmill going nowhere. I thought the only thing I could do to be strong and be healthy was get on a treadmill. Bullshit. Because genetically it didn't work for me.
Yeah.
Genetically, I have to do 80% heavy weight training. Heavy weight. And 20% can be cardio. Well, 20% is going for a walk, right? I mean, but I have to do heavy weightlifting. So I do 4.5 hours a week of really heavy weight. Like this morning I did, here, I'll tell you exactly what I did. I did 18,741 pounds this morning.
And in a variety of the machines or just in the free weights?
No, in a variety of machines. So I have a machine in my home. It's called Tonal. And I'm not endorsing Tonal. I just happen to find that it's small, it's not intrusive, and it gives me everything I need. I bought this during the pandemic when I couldn't go to the gym and go swimming or run on my treadmill, which, by the way, changed nothing for me. And I used to swim 5 hours a week, an hour, 5 days a week.
Wow.
Nothing. So I bought a Tonal, and I had, we have a fitness gal. She's a professional weightlifter and bodybuilder. And I said to her, can you make me a program? And she did. And so I started doing this. And at first I'm like, I'm not doing anything. It's not changing anything. And my weight didn't change. But all of a sudden my clothes fit different. And I went, okay. So I went to Kashif and I said, here's the deal. He goes, Tracy, lift heavier, but fewer reps. Okay, fine. So I started deadlifting a ton of weight. And again, I didn't lose any weight at first, but I gained a ton of muscle. So long and the short of it, I have lost, I think it was 6 inches off of my hips.
Wow.
Through this process, and a bunch everywhere else. But my weight still maintained in a healthy zone. And now I have more energy. I'm 1,000 times stronger than I ever was. Right. And I can hit a golf ball about 240, 250 yards.
Wow. That's amazing. I think I'm doing great when I'm at 150 drive, but wow, that just shows you how strong you are. Do you ever do the in body or the other one that I found at the show in December is called something shape, but they go in and basically dissect every part of your body as far as fat mass and muscle mass and.
No, I have a scale that tells me like how much muscle I have, which has gone way up, how much the bone is, how much visceral fat. I have all of that on my scale.
Okay. And have you seen big changes there?
Huge. Yeah.
So you've changed the whole body composition.
Absolutely.
And you didn't have to lose a bunch of pounds.
No.
But your body changed. I think that's key for people to understand. How have the GLP-1s and the people that have used those have had things like insulin resistance when they would genetically predispose? How has that affected your relationship with the testing? When the genetics say they are predisposed to having insulin resistance, and yet now they're on a GLP-1 and they're now showing that they're conquering their type 2 diabetes. So, despite their genetics.
Well, but they're only conquering it while they're on it.
That's true.
What we're seeing is everybody that's coming off of it. Right?
That's true.
We're also seeing an increase globally in pancreatic cancer, which, by the way, is one of the lesser known side effects to many of these medications.
That's right.
Right? So what we're seeing is women, again, our contemporaries, coming to us and saying, my hormones are still a mess. You know, I've lost 35 pounds, but then I put it all back on plus another 20%.
Right.
And I can't keep doing these shots, and I can't afford this and can't afford that.
Right.
This is no different than that whole pill for every ill, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does it help some people? Yes, 1000%. And you know what? Good for them doing that work. Injecting something into your body, that takes a mindset of, I'm at the end of my rope, right?
Mm-hmm.
So good for them doing that. But what do you do in conjunction with that? Well, if you don't know if your body should have this type of fat compared to this type of fat, or if you should have this much carbohydrate compared to that much carbohydrate, if you don't know that, even while you're on those shots, you're not going to change anything. I'm going to tell you one more story, then I'm going to let you go. We had a gal come to us, and I've known this gal for 20 years, been friends for 20 years. And she came to me at an all-time high in her weight, and she said, I give up. And I said, what do you want to do? And she said, I can't take anymore. She said, I feel horrific. I look horrific. I can't get up. I have chronic pain. I have fibromyalgia. I'm in serious depression. I'm taking all of these medications. And I said, well, if you want to get real about your shit, let's get real about your shit. And I said, we need to test you. And we did. And in that test, we found there was problems with gluten, there was problems with hormones, there was problems with different types of dairy products. We found that there was a big aversion to taking advice, because that's genetic. And we found that they could not consume alcohol. Their body just wasn't built for it. And I said, so let's tackle one thing at a time. Just stop drinking. Don't start moving. Don't do anything else. Just stop drinking. And she wasn't a big drinker, but, you know, she had a glass of wine at the end of every day. She's a C-level executive for a Fortune 500 company. And, you know, at the end of the day, she came home, she had a glass of wine. So we stopped that. And then I said, how about if I cook what I cook for me all week, and I'll just make twice as much on a Sunday. You come and pick up your food, and then only eat what I make. So I got her gluten-free and dairy-free in the first month. She lost 16 pounds.
Wow.
I said to her,
and no
she goes,
GLP.
No GLP yet. She goes, I want to try the GLP ones. I said, that's fine. I said, but if you're going to do that, you have to start working out. And she bought a tonal. So she got a tonal in. She had a consultation with Felicia, who's our Felicia Fit gal. And Felicia said, here, just do this little program. So we got her doing that because, again, she's at a Fortune 500 company. She's a chief. She works 14 hours a day.
Right.
She drives 3 of those hours because of where she lives compared to where her organization is.
So stress is a big factor too.
Stress, right? Can you imagine being on the freeway in California for 3 hours a day? I'd shoot myself.
No.
Right? Awful. So anyway, we got her doing it. So she gets up at 4, she has her coffee, she is in her gym by 5, she's in the shower by 6, she's out the door by 7, and she's at the office for 8:30. And that was her new thing. Now we just actually profiled her in the magazine that came out 1st of January, and she's down 56 pounds. She has stopped the GLP-1. She was only on it for a couple of months in the middle, and she has stopped that, and she has not gone back to any of her old habits because now she knows in her brain what she has to do to keep herself on track.
And there's knowledge is power.
Absolutely.
Always.
You know, we give all this free education, Michele. We're not charging people for a master class. We're not charging people a subscription to come into our webinars to grace us with their presence. We want everybody to come. We want everybody to listen to the replay, go onto the YouTube, go into the app, read the magazine. We want you guys to get as much good vetted information as we possibly can get to you. One of the biggest
because that makes your job easier to implement the findings if people are receptive, and knowledge. Here again, knowledge is power. If they if they understand, then they're going to be far more able to be compliant to execute action, positive action.
Right.
So I have two more questions for you. That's
Sure.
quite a story, by the way. But I have two more questions for you. So you mentioned earlier that you have a customized supplement product. So in a case like this woman, did you give her a so-called multi program so that she could no longer just willy-nilly take supplements that might not be serving her?
Absolutely.
And how did you come about customizing that supplement? And can anybody who takes your test then come back to you for a customized supplement?
Yeah, so I wanted to make that affordable as well. So most people spend about $500 a month,
right,
on the high end,
right,
$350 on the low end for supplementation.
Right.
So I wanted, if you had your genetic results, which she did, I wanted you to have a consultation with a certified functional genomics practitioner, because we have to take the rest of your history. Right now, my friend had donated a kidney to her sister. So she had some special needs, right? She had fibromyalgia, so she had some special needs there. She also suffered with depression. She had special needs there. So it's important to me that you sit with a practitioner, but again, I got to make it affordable. So we got the price of that consultation down to $75, which quite honestly is unheard of, right?
That's unheard of, for sure.
But then we take your gene report, we take your clinical history, and then we go in and we make you a custom formula. Now she's spending, was $522, her last order, but that was for 3 months.
Okay. Yeah.
So we wanted to make it affordable, we wanted to make it bio-individual, and we wanted to make it accessible. And we tell everybody, you got to order 3 months at a time. It's a lot cheaper, which they all do. And they don't have to buy any of this other crap that they're getting at Costco or GNC. Right? 80% of it's corn meal,
which is oftentimes tainted anyway, and comes from China and is counterfeit. So that's why they're saying don't buy your supplements on Amazon, because you don't always know that it's for the real company or some Chinese imitator. So
well, the peptides are the same, Michele.
I know.
The peptides coming into this country are all formulated in a region of the world where there's no rules.
I know.
And then
that's a whole other subject.
Right? Tens of thousands of dollars, and then we inject them into our body because we think that's a good idea. What are we doing?
So, but Tracy, if you do it every 3 months, and let's say you come to a point where your body doesn't need one particular supplement anymore because it's now functioning perfectly on its own, and you don't want to make it so that it doesn't make its own, let's say, where you suppress the body's ability. So do you retest people, let's say, after the 3 months to see if the customized formula needs to be modified?
No, because the formula is based on your genetics. It's not based on your condition. But what we do, your formula is based on your height, your weight, your gender, and your genes.
Okay.
If your weight changes more than 10%, we're going to say you need to have another consult. We need to make sure we're doing good. I want people to be able to come in, get what fits for them, and then only see us once a year, right?
Okay.
That's the goal. But if you have major changes, then we have to address those things.
Then you have to do that. Okay, so I have two more questions, actually. I lied. I said one, two more, but it was three more. So the second question is about the APO4 allele. Okay, so let's take someone like Chris Hemsworth, who, obviously has gotten a lot of publicity about, finding out that he has the gene and then quitting his actor's roles just to be with his family because he felt maybe that this was like a death sentence. What would you say if he were your client coming into the DNA company to do your test?
The first thing that I would offer to him is genes are not diagnostic. They're indicators.
That's great.
Lots of people have the BRCA gene and never get cancer. Lots of people don't have the BRCA gene and they get cancer. And
you're talking about breast cancer now, right?
Absolutely. Genes in and of themselves are not fatalistic. They're not diagnostic. understanding the inter-exchange of gene and function and all of those things added to lifestyle, etc., that's where you can then start to look at something and say, this one thing could be a contributor. There's no bad actor in your genes, right? There's only a bad decision behind that gene, right? So it comes down to, you've said it over and over, education. The more you know, the more you know, the more you understand. And be willing to come in and look at yourself from that 360 seat and decide what it is you want to be different. You've got to decide what's important to you. And if it's weight management, if it's longevity, if it's cognitive decline, then hone in on that. But work with somebody that knows how to help you hone in on that based on your genetic results.
Yeah, so basically, if Chris Hemsworth walked in your door, you would tell him, you don't need to quit your job and give up your career because you think you're going to, die young. You have the opportunity with this knowledge to improve whatever it is that, might be genetically predisposed to, but it doesn't mean you're going to get Alzheimer's just because. Correct. So there's so many people that get that APO4 positive and they think that they're going to, have Alzheimer's, but that doesn't mean. So I think if we could just settle that, it would help a lot of people mentally to be less stressed and have more positive outlook about their ability to just live a normal life and just follow the lifestyle, epigenetic approaches that they will, they'll never get Alzheimer's. Does that seem fair to put it that way?
It's a perfectly fair assessment. At the end of the day, thinking that your genes are fatalistic, you've already decided what you're going to do.
Yes. Right?
You've already made a decision. That's how my life's going to end. Well, if that's what you think, right, nobody going to be able to change that. Nobody but you. People cannot be treated in groups. People cannot be treated clinically. And I see this all the time. Oh, I'm going to this master class and we're going to talk about this and we're going to talk about that. You can't be treated clinically in a group. You have to have that one-on-one, because as a clinician, they've got to ask you questions that you haven't thought of yet. And they're going to look at your answers in that totality, with the results, with the labs, with the histories. I mean, I make our people come in all the time that are women coming into programs. I tell them, I want every single medical test that you've had done in the last 2 years loaded into the EMR. And they're like, why? I said, because more is better.
Right.
Right? More is better.
And you can see changes. Like if you're running it over 2 years, you can say, okay, 2 years ago you had some elevated creatinine, so your kidneys were compromised. But today, everything is normal. So whatever you did in the meantime, so it's important to see a timeline.
Right, absolutely. Right? And again, tracking the trend, right? Tracking the trend of all of our data. We don't sell your data right now. Not that we haven't been approached. Let me just quantify that. And
but look what happened with 23andMe, who did sell that data. They obviously became, true charlatans and bankrupt.
Right, and then they turned around and gave her the company back vis-a-vis another person. I don't even know how that became a thing. So we get approached all the time. We can biobank this, and it's like, no. My people don't want that. My people don't want their shit being sold to some pharmaceutical company or some insurance company or some government. We don't want that.
Right.
So, when you come in here and you get that APOE that's a 4, you don't want that information being passed anywhere, right?
Wouldn't you think that the HIPAA laws would protect people from, like people like you from ever doing that? because you're basically sharing medical information with, the world.
Well, no, here's how it works. So when you biobank somebody's data, you're not uniquely identifying them, allegedly. And that's how they skirt some of that. I
Okay.
won't do it. And one of the things Kashif said to me when he asked me to be the CEO was, how did I feel about that? And I said, quite candidly, Kashif, over my dead body. And he
Good.
goes, okay. And so, we've had people send us things demanding somebody's results, and I've written back, no,
Right.
no. Unless that patient comes to me and says, hey, can you send my stuff to this person? My response
Right.
is going to be no.
Right.
I take a little
Okay.
bit of heat for that, Michelle, but it is what it is.
Right. No, I love to hear that, and I'm sure everybody listening and viewing loves to hear that too, because there's so much issue now about privacy on the internet with what's going on with Meta and the Instagram and all the things where your data is you're just not safe, and you feel like you can be watched for what your buying practices are, and it's really amazing. Sometimes you look at something that you might want to buy online, and next thing you know, you're getting 10 different
Yep.
advertisements for that particular item, and you say, how the heck did
Right.
they know that I was looking at buying an electric toothbrush, and now
Yeah.
all of a sudden I'm flooded with electric toothbrush. Okay, so my other question is, so when I did your test, this is more personal, but it does affect a lot of people.
Sure.
When I did your test, I came out with the obesity. I had the obesity gene. And yet I'm, always from the time I was young, I've always challenged by staying thin and fit, but I've always been able to accomplish that, and I've never succumbed to what my genetics would say that I could be obese. So I'm a size 6, and I weigh 115, 20 pounds, and I'm 5'6". So you would never ever suggest that, but genetically I'm predisposed to having the obesity.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you explain that to people? That, I mean, it's kind of similar to what we were saying about the APO4 and the
Right.
BRCA, right?
It's not diagnostic. It's
Yeah.
an indicator. It's not
Right.
a guarantee. It's an indicator. So,
Okay, that's an important statement that you
Right.
just make. So I'd like to repeat that for everybody, that when you take your genetic test, it's not diagnostic. So don't take it literally that you are going to be a victim, because or you might as well give up
Right.
and accept the fact. It's like with the dopamine and the neurotransmitters that Kosh and I share, the fact that we have a weak dopamine gene or whatever it is, but
Right.
yet we are able to be very high energy, high positive thinkers. And yeah, so it's the same, isn't it the same issue where basically they say the genes don't lie. Well, maybe they don't lie, but they don't need to be some verdict.
Right.
That
They're not
you're
some
gonna,
self-fulfilling prophecy.
there you go.
I believe everything is a choice. Everything
Yeah.
in life. And I always have. And I do believe everything is a choice. How we show up,
Right.
how we present ourselves, how we manage our stress, how we manage our sleep, how we interact with the world. Everything's a choice.
Right.
I can have a really tough day and go home and be in a shit mood and just be angry, or I can leave my day at the office and then just go home to my
Right.
beautiful view and sit on my back
Right.
patio and just be so full of gratitude. That's all a
Right.
choice.
Right.
My genes would have me leave here furious, drive home like a maniac, be furious when I'm at home, and take forever to shake it off.
Right.
That's not a self-fulfilling prophecy. That's a choice.
Right. Right. I think that's you just gave the perfect answer, that basically, you might have a certain verdict come out of your genetics. That does not mean, because we have free will and free choice,
Right.
that does not mean you have to accept that, because actually that's where I guess the definition of epigenetics comes in, right? What you
Right.
choose and your lifestyle
Right.
is going to influence the outcome. So the verdict can be different than the the so-called judgment that you see.
Correct.
So I think you have to be a kind of a psychologist when you are dealing with these people taking your tests too, because a lot of people give up.
Yeah.
They say, "Oh, well, I have that. You know, that's a verdict and
Right.
a self-fulfilling prophecy." And you have to really get in there and give them a kick in the you know what to.
Well, that's why the
explain.
mood and behavior part of the panel is so important, right?
Ah,
And generally, when we sit and talk to a patient, we start with mood and behavior because everything is a choice. If they think this is it, this is how I go, that's how you're going to go. You know, I learned this from Tony Robbins years and years and years ago. If you focus on what's dead around you, the brown in life, that's all you're going to get.
Right.
If you focus on the green around you, you're going to see growth. You're going to see life. You're going to see thriving. It's all that force of focus. If you are genetically predetermined to suffer from serious depression,
yes,
we have to share with you how to focus on that green. You're going to need some help. You're going to need some coaching. And we do that. But you're also going to need some supplementation.
Yeah.
And we do that. So if you take these little tiny steps for yourself, pretty soon you're going to wake up in the morning, you're going to open the window and go, wow, look at the hills. They look really green today. Right.
I think you've hit the nail on the head that we are all energetic beings, and you know, we can look at the world with, as they always say, the glass half full or empty,
right?
And or we have a choice to look at it overflowing and to find all that green, as you say.
Right.
So you know, we are what we think, and we are what we eat, but we are what we think. But they do combine.
You bet they do, and they drive our behavior.
Exactly. So what would you like to say to our viewers in parting today? What would be one final like kernel of truth, a message that you would like to impart?
I think the most important thing that I say on any given day is test, don't guess.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know what you don't know, you can't change anything.
Mm-hmm.
So get your tests done. If you can't afford to do clinical consults, that's okay. Come to the webinars. Bring your test in the app. Ask questions. They will answer them for you. Mm-hmm. We will do everything we can to help.
Well, I have to say that on the internet, you are one of the more active companies for all this education, the webinars and the rest. And it's really impressive because that's a lot of work.
Yes, it is.
You have to corral a lot of experts. Yep. To even, I would never want to be in your position to come on the internet and have something fall flat in its face because you didn't have the right, information. So you really have to be prepared, and that takes a lot of executive time and money.
Yeah.
So
I've got an amazing team, Michele. I'm blessed. I live a blessed life. I have, in my opinion, I have the best people in the business. I really do.
That's right there. Shows leadership. Yeah. The belief in those that follow you. A good leader is only someone who has great followers, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So before we go, I had just one more thing that occurred to me because we did touch on peptides earlier, and yes, there are many charlatans, and yes, there are also some good compounding pharmacies that are bringing peptides out, and it's become kind of the darling of the supplement world. That and stem cells, but how are you incorporating, like, let's say Selank or CMAX, two of the neuro peptides that have shown some results with people that we talked about earlier who have, some mental issues in their genetics. So are you embracing the quality peptides, the ones that are produced at the highest levels of efficacy? How are you incorporating that into your customized supplement program?
We're not.
Or are you?
We're not.
Okay.
So I said earlier, we call it practicing medicine because they don't have it down yet. I feel the same way. Now, there's a massive difference between some of these supplements companies and what we do. There's a massive difference between all of these foreign peptide companies and what some of these other good folks do.
Right.
My concern is who creates that formula? What's their education? What's their medical and clinical research background? You know, somebody that's an influencer.
That would be the wrong person.
That is the wrong person.
Yeah, of course.
You'd be amazed at how many of those are happening right now.
I know.
And
It's the wild, wild west right now.
Right,
Tracy.
but the problem
is
scary. It's malpractice.
It is.
And they don't have a medical license. But
Right.
here's the bigger problem. I literally had this happen 2 weeks ago. We had a patient come to us that took the advice of somebody on these peptides, and this person custom created the formula themselves, and they had no medical education. They never even went to college. They didn't even take biochem.
Yeah.
And I said to her, I said, what were you thinking? And she said,
Right.
well, everybody says, you know, he's a guru.
Yeah. It's gonna have a
can
crash
kill
and
you.
burn. Yeah, it will crash and burn. But you know, look, supplements are not regulated, and that creates a wild, wild west in very many of these counterfeit supplement companies that they find when they test them that they don't even have the ingredients that they say, and what they do have is damaging to our health. So you know, it's all around us. I think the key word is discernment.
Yeah.
And well, first knowledge.
Right.
You know,
Test.
to know where to go.
Right.
And
Test.
starting with somebody like you, as you'll lead them, because you're starting at the foundation, which is their genetic profile.
Right.
So, all right. Well, we've done a lot of exploring and covered a lot of ground today, and I think because you're always fun to be with and talk to, and you have so much knowledge. And yes, I didn't mention your background early on because we had that in the article about you, but I think it's just so touching how you came to be who you are. So maybe just take the one last minute we have and just tell people, you can take a little more than a minute, but just tell people what it is that happened to you that basically changed your whole life trajectory.
Sure. So I was in technology. I worked for General Telephone, MCI. I worked for big network companies.
Right.
And when my eldest child was 2, she was diagnosed with a form of child-centric or something, leukemia. It was ITP. And essentially, her platelets wouldn't...
That's what, by the way, Tracy, you never told me that, but that's exactly what I have had. It's an autoimmune condition. It's idiopathic, so you don't know what causes it. But I didn't have it until I was 26 years old, so they think that it might have something to do with vaccines or pesticides, and you know that. But it dumbfounds the medical world because they don't know why is it your body is attacking its own platelets.
Well,
so I understand.
Yeah,
I understand ITP.
That's where I started, right? We almost lost Isabel. And it was horrific. I mean, my little girl was bleeding to death, right? And you could see it. So during that time, I decided to get my real estate license, and I would go in and become a broker, and then I could stay at home with the kids. I had 2 kids at that point. One was a newborn, and of course, Bella, who was 2. And so that's kind of how I came out of corporate America. And in February of 2007, my eldest sister died of a drug overdose. She was 45 years old. She left behind a developmentally disabled son, who I was his conservator, and a pregnant 17-year-old daughter. And my sister had told all of us for years she had cancer. We knew that wasn't true. We knew there was something really wrong, so we assumed this drug overdose was simply that. Come to find out, after the doctor who said to the fire chief the night Jackie died, hey, I'll sign the death certificate, she had cancer. This was a mainstream doctor in a nationally established medical system. The fire chief said, okay, fine. Body was taken to the mortuary. 7 days later, the doctor's not signing the death certificate because he finally looked into the EMR and found out Jackie never had cancer. But what he did do was he treated her and treated her for 5 years. She went in and said, I have cancer, I have pain. He gave her OxyContin, he gave her Vicodin, he gave her Norco, he gave her Soma, Xanax. Jackie had every narcotic known to man in one bag. But what she also had was 3 other drugs for schizophrenia, which none of us knew.
Oh, God.
And in January of that year, January 28th to be specific, he changed one of those schizophrenic meds and clearly forgot that the rest of the narcotics that she had could kill her. And within 5 days, her lungs shut down and Jackie stopped breathing.
Oh, my God.
My whole family fell apart.
Yeah.
I honestly, Michele, I couldn't function.
Right.
And we were gutted, right? Because she was schizophrenic, so all she really needed was some help, and we would have helped. But she kept everybody so far away, we thought she did have a drug problem. But the truth was is she really didn't. She was just medicating to get by because this schizophrenia was doing what it does. And the challenge I had with that doctor was he was a psychiatrist. And he gave her the drugs that killed her. And so after that, I went through a lot of therapy for myself, for my family, and I realized I had to do something. And I actually started the first online behavioral health platform. It was called How to Connect. We had 70 some odd team members. We were all privately funded. And at the time, the chief medical officer for Teladoc came to me and said, hey, can you do this project? And I said, sure, we can do. They wanted to do a control group of 600,000 patients in California. And I said, sure. And then Teladoc burned through their money in September, laid everybody off. And that was kind of the beginning and the end of it. But that's what got me to stay in behavioral health and then wellness and just chase it down to find a way to make one more life impacted. Whether it was this patient in England, whether it was the guy we got through massive addiction, whether it was someone like my sister. So that's what got me.
That's it. Because she was killed by the medical, the allopathic medical community. And what happened to your daughter? Did they cure the ITP?
So ITP, as you know, is not curable. She went into remission, but not until she was 14, and she's been healthy ever since. Yeah.
Yeah, because in my case, I never had any surgeries. They wanted to take my spleen out when I was 26, and I said, absolutely no, thank God I was smart enough.
Yeah.
And then later I read that most of those people that had their spleen out never got the platelets ITP cured anyway.
Right.
So, so something she's doing lifestyle-wise has helped her, and that's obviously.
Well, I kept her gluten-free.
Yeah.
She didn't get sodas or anything like that.
Yeah.
I was really big on how their food was delivered. She was not allowed to be inoculated at all.
That's
so
how
we
I
kept
am.
all of that away from her.
I think you can take the credit for her being where she is today. Just like in my case, it was me. Yeah. I was, just that motivated to go learn everything I could. But it wasn't consuming me. It was just, somehow there were angels on my shoulder that said, you need to follow, these paths. And that was obviously the, alternative approach and not the allopathic. So I know that, I might be a miracle. My doctor in Beverly Hills says, you're a walking miracle.
Nice.
Good for you. My platelet count is the last one was well, I had one recently at 50,000, but the one before that was 17,000.
Wow.
And that's what it's been hanging out at around 17,000, which your normal is supposed to be 150,000.
150,000 to 500,000, yeah.
Yeah, so the fact that I can be a normal person, there's somewhere God is watching out for me. I always, have gratitude and thank the good Lord. All right. Well, thank you very much, Tracy, and I'll be in touch with you. Send me that intro.
I'll send you an intro to TS. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. You take care.